Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. We're looking at a comic book today, a new release from Eric July's Rippaverse Comics, the highly anticipated Yaira, #1, a character who first got a lot of interest when she appeared just in some images on the website. Even more interest when she appeared in ISOM #1, which I admit she piqued my interest in ISOM #1 quite a bit because she comes in with a lot of power. I'd looked at the costume and immediately thought, oh, maybe she's like a sorceress kind of character. And no, man, she's more like Thor or Superman. She's easily one of the more powerful characters in the Rippaverse, and that was very intriguing. So I have waited for Yaira #1 so I could learn more about this character and learn more about her. I did. Now, this is a spoiler-free review. We're going to look at some of the images in the book. I'm going to chat about it a little bit. It is a difficult spoiler-free review, though, because the Soska Sisters put a lot into this book. Character building, universe building, and a lot of it's really cool. Like all the Rippaverse product, it does not lay everything out for you nice and easy from the get-go. In terms of character history, in terms of the extent of their powers, it teases it out, and you get a lot of teasing in this, but you do learn a lot as well. Before we look at the book itself, let's look at, this is cover A, which I'm using for my reader copy. And you can see these are thick books. They're more like graphic novels, but I'd say it's almost like it's really more like a trade paperback in some ways. This is cover B, cover C, cover D. All of them beautiful, excellent, awesome. Whichever one you happen to pick, I don't think you're going to be sorry. I think you're going to be very happy with it. All right, let's move these out of the way. So what do we get in Yaira #1? Well, let's take a look. We get the Rippaverse Ethics. We get a great splash page, which you look at it, it's kind of hard to tell exactly what you're looking at initially. I think it's more just artistic than a representation, but you get this sort of shattered glass or perhaps ice. You get her reaching through this mirror, although you notice too, you're looking at different, here's costume. This looks like a business suit. Okay, so we have a divided character here, perhaps. I like it. It's a nice splash page. Yaira, Jen and Sylvia Soska, writers. Deborah Carita, artist. Thiago Gomez and 137 Studio inkers. Jay Brown, colorist. Eric Weathers and Invincible Art Studio letterers. Andrew Rodriguez, lead editor. Kanan White, lead art editor. Alan Ford, copy editor. Eric July, editor-in-chief. And cover artists, cover A, this one, Kanan White. Cover B, Will Conrad. Cover C, Graham Nolan. Cover D, Mark Evans. They're really great covers. We begin the book with a scene that is going to be familiar if you have read ISOM #1. In ISOM #1, at a certain point, Isom takes a hit from a very powerful character, which sends him hurtling up into the sky. And midway up there, Yaira happens to meet him. And it's not a happy meeting, certainly not for Isom. She thinks it's somebody coming after her. She hits him. He hits this car hard and is left stunned as she flies off. Do not follow me. I would probably not follow her at that point. And then we get her meeting with Alpha Corps. And if you've read Alpha Corps #1, you know who they are. They are essentially superpowered police in Flores Park, Texas. And they have dealt with Yaira before. And they're not overly enthused about dealing with her again. And so we get sort of a repeat of their fight. So you're kind of learning a little bit. Now, this is something that I liked about the Rippaverse from the get-go, is that we are building a tapestry here. We're building a shared universe. We're seeing events oftentimes from other angles, from other attitudes, how different characters perceive these things. And so she manages, even though Solari is probably about as powerful as she is. And he has Ingrid helping him. She creates this sort of I was going to say cyclone, I guess technically a tornado, that hurls them into the upper atmosphere where the air is very thin. And that gives her the ability to deal with them. We have a kiss between her and Solari. What does that mean? And then we get to see the news coverage of the event. And Solari is PO'd. And now we shift to a press conference at Projexus, where it's being announced that they are adding a new person to their team, Dr. Sally Rodell. And I have to admit, every time I saw Rodell, I thought Rydell, like in Greece. Never mind. It's just me because I'm weird and I watch too much pop culture. And so you can see she is quite a bit taller. She's an imposing specimen, just as Yaira is. She's an archaeologist. She's a biologist. And they're doing work on longevity. Some of that involves cryogenics. And so she introduces herself. And you learn really quickly that she's a serious woman herself. There is a sense of humor, although it's often undergirded by maybe a little rage, a little anger. But this is a woman who you can tell right away has seen a lot, and a lot of what she's seen has not been pleasant. So she gets a tour of the site. And again, we're looking here primarily at the art. It's very nice. Now we get a little bit of action. There's a robbery in progress. These folks have these masks on to, cover their identities, but it also looked like maybe they were using, I don't know, gas in the attack. It's hard to say exactly. There's a fatality as another security guard arrives. And what happens in the middle of all this, this woman who's with this gang gets hit by a bullet. And this sets off powers that we're going to find are very similar to Yaira's. And at the use of those powers, these two entities take notice. They're speaking an unknown language. Are they aliens? Are they gods? Are they godlike aliens? Are they just a couple who are out for a stroll in space? I'm not going to say. Now, at this point, and this is my point here, I'm going to stop flipping through pages because I'm going to start giving things away. But I think you've gotten at least a look at Deborah's art. Beautiful stuff. Looks really nice. Let's chat about this book a little bit. One of the things that struck me reading this initially was, man, this is like just good old-fashioned comic books. And I say old-fashioned for a reason. It reminded me a bit of Bronze Age books. It's pretty dense. You get a lot of modern books, and, they do in 20 pages what old books did in 10, or sometimes less than 10. And I know a lot of people prefer that less, less dense sort of storytelling. I'm an old guy. I kind of prefer the other. Get to it. There's so much in this book. We learn a lot about Yaira, why she is like, what she is, where her attitudes come from. But we do also learn a lot about the universe. Now, in Alpha Core, you learn a lot more about Flores Park, Texas, and I think you're going to continue. So you're learning the street level stuff, and that's something that obviously Chuck Dixon likes a lot, having written Batman for many, many years and Gotham City. That's something he's really enjoying. This one is more cosmic, if you want to put it that way, in terms of what you're learning, and you're definitely picking up hints. I can think of other characters, creatures that have appeared in other books and going, oh, okay, I'm seeing how all this is shaping up. I'm seeing where all this comes from now. And I like it. It's interesting. It keeps you going. You get some amazing fight scenes. Very cinematic. You could definitely turn this into an animated movie or a live action movie. I prefer animated movies for comic books. It's just me. I've seen some people mention a little bit of an anime feel, or maybe anime. Actually, there is. I get a little bit of that. The villains' soliloquies reminded me a little bit of some of the villains you get in anime series. So it's dense. The other thing I liked about it is, in all of these different titles, you really get a sense of the authorial voice. This reads different from Alpha Core. It reads different from ISOM, and those two read differently from one another. And I think it's a credit to Eric July that he's saying, here's the setup, and now you guys go and run with it and do something cool. And he's letting these things have their own feel, their own vibe, their own character, even though they're clearly all part of the same world, interacting with each other, building into something very cool. So I know this seems like a short review. Again, if it wasn't a spoiler-free review, I could probably go through this book over the course of an hour. There's a lot of cool stuff to pick out of it. The villains are very interesting and very tough, and they hint at much bigger things about this universe, this cosmos that's being built here. I was going to say that we're building. I'm not building it. That's being built at Rippaverse. On par with the Marvel universe, the DC universe. There's certain things that remind me of DC Comics and how the stories are told. There are certain things in terms of the breadth and the depth of the whole thing, and that it's not, DC is like a mashup of a bunch of different characters who were really in their own little worlds initially, and then started being partnered together and paired together in books. And over time, you kind of got this implied universe that at times didn't make a lot of sense. Marvel was a little bit more planned out by Stan, and a lot by Jack Kirby, because he loved the cosmic stuff and did a lot of that stuff. So the Marvel universe, at least up to a point, held together, I think, a little bit better. That's what the Rippaverse is like. It holds together. A lot of cool stuff here. There's a lot of cool stuff here. So if you've been on the fence about getting Yaira #1, I would say take a look at it. Grab a cover that you like, and give it a shot. It's an interesting character. I'm definitely ready for Yaira #2, and see what else the Soskas come up with. I know they're going to work on Bloodruth as well, who is a magical character. Yaira's, she's powerful, and she's got, it's like she's, I don't want to say an anti-hero. That's not the right term. She's a force of nature. She has her own agenda, right? Alpha Core they're the police. They're looking, for justice. They're looking at, capturing criminals and putting them in jail and that kind of thing. So they have that particular agenda. Yaira's a little bit more like ISOM, although I think ISOM has a particular moral compass, and issues with some of the things he had to deal with as a hero that made him quit for a while, and now he's coming back because of family. But I think it's deeper than that. Yaira has a whole big backstory, and she's driven internally to the things she does. And you'll understand her motivations and her agenda when you read this book. And I think it opens up a lot of interesting opportunities for storytelling with this character. And I think she has the potential to be a catalyst for events within the Rippaverse. She's not a bad guy, but she's not entirely a good guy either. It's a well-rounded, interesting character. I enjoyed the book. I definitely intend to get more of them. And I suggest you check it out if this has piqued your interest. It's a good entry into the Rippaverse. It's feeling so much more full now. I think it's exciting to see where it goes. You know, it is kind of like witnessing the birth of the Marvel Universe in some ways. Obviously, Marvel was breaking a lot of rules and kind of they were creating a Marvel age of comics that ultimately everybody was trying to emulate at a certain point. Here, it's just good story, good art, interesting universe that's unfolding before our eyes. And I think their innovations are more in terms of how the comic books are delivered, again, how they're packaged as trade paperbacks, essentially. Because you could definitely see this as being 3 or 4 issues of a Bronze Age comic and maybe 6 issues of a modern age comic, who likes to sort of stretch things out a little bit. You get a lot of story in this one. I think it's an excellent place to dip into the Rippaverse too, if you haven't bought any of the other books. You don't need to have bought them. You don't need to have read those stories to read Yaira. You don't. You can just jump in on this one, but you'll learn a little bit about them, and maybe you'll want to go check those out as well. Okay. Yaira #1, Jen and Sylvia Soska, Deborah Carita. Good stuff. Solid book. Good storytelling. Good world and universe building. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. That'll do it for this review. I'd like to hear from you if you've also read it. Obviously, if you're going to leave comments, please leave comments that do not spoil the story for other people, because they're in that phase right now of trying to not spoil it for folks who are ready to just dip in and haven't gotten too far. So that's why I'm trying to keep this spoiler free at the moment. Maybe sometime in the future I'll do deeper dives on these different Rippaverse books, like I do with the Alpha Flight stuff. But right now, I prefer keeping it spoiler-free. So please keep comments spoiler-free. If you have any questions, please ask them. I'll do my best to answer them. But of course, lots of videos online, interviews with folks who have done these. So if you're really interested, you could easily go out and find probably that information you need. But please, if you have a comment, please leave it. I'd love to hear from you. Until my next video, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little fun out of there. And maybe go check out Yaira. I think you'll be happy that you did. And I'll see you next time in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.